The lights in the Galactic Council chamber were bright enough to hurt human eyes. 300 species sat in their designated areas, watching the center stage where Queen Aria stood. She was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, and her body seemed to be made of living crystal. Colors moved beneath her skin like oil on water, shifting from deep purple to bright gold. This was how her people talked, through colors and light. But today she also spoke in the common tongue so everyone could understand. "I seek a consort," Queen Aria announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Someone brave enough to stand beside me and unite our peoples through bond and blood." The chamber fell silent. This was unprecedented. The Velkhari were warriors, predators who had fought the galaxy for decades before the peace treaty was signed 3 years ago. Their queen wanting to marry outside her species was shocking. "There will be 7 trials," she continued. "Anyone from any allied species may attempt them. Those who succeed will prove themselves worthy. Those who fail," she paused, her skin flashing red, "will learn why the Velkhari are feared." On Earth, billions of humans watched the broadcast. Most people changed the channel after a few minutes. This was alien politics, strange and dangerous. It had nothing to do with them. But in a small apartment in New Sol Station, a man named Doyen sat very still, watching every word. He was 32 years old, with tired eyes and calloused hands from years of piloting cargo ships. His apartment was small and bare, with only a few photos on the wall. One showed him with his flight crew, all of them smiling. That photo was 5 years old. All those people were dead now except him. Doyen leaned forward as the broadcast continued. Other species were already talking about sending champions. The Korthan Empire spoke of their greatest warrior. The Cecil Collective mentioned their most intelligent minds. Everyone seemed to think this was about strength or intelligence, but Doyen saw something else. When the camera zoomed in on Queen Aria's face, he saw the way her colors dimmed for just a moment. He saw the loneliness in her multifaceted eyes. He had learned to read Velkhari expressions during the war, and he knew what that look meant. She was alone, desperately alone, and this challenge was as much a cry for help as it was a political move. The next morning, Doyen went to Earth's diplomatic headquarters in Seoul. The building was huge and made of smart glass that changed colors with the sunlight. He walked through security checkpoints past guards who looked at him curiously. A cargo pilot had no business being here. Finally, he reached the office of Ambassador Hyejin. She was in her 50s with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. When Doyen told her why he had come, she stared at him for a full minute without speaking. "You want to attempt the trials?" she said slowly. "You, a cargo pilot, want to try to marry the Velkhari queen?" "Yes, Ambassador." "Do you know that 17 candidates have already tried?" "Do you know that 4 of them died? The others were so badly injured they'll never fully recover." "I know." Hyejin stood up and walked to the window. Below them, the city of Seoul stretched out, a mix of old and new buildings, humans going about their daily lives. "Why would you do this? What could possibly make you think you have a chance?" Doyen pulled out a small data chip and placed it on her desk. "During the war, my ship was hit. We were drifting, life support failing. A Velkhari squadron found us. They should have left us to die. We were enemies, but they didn't. They pulled us aboard their ship and kept us alive until we could be exchanged for prisoners." He tapped the chip. "I was conscious during the rescue. I heard them talking. I started learning their language. After the war ended, I kept studying. I got implants that let me see their color speech. I've spent 5 years learning everything I can about the Velkhari culture." Hyejin picked up the chip and inserted it into her computer. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. There were language studies, cultural analysis, even medical records showing the neural implants Doyen had received. This wasn't a sudden impulse. This man had been preparing for years. "Even with all this," Hyejin said quietly, "you're still human. You're smaller, weaker. The trials are designed for species that can survive things we can't." "I know I can't match them in strength," Doyen admitted, "but maybe I don't need to. Humans are good at adapting. We're good at finding different solutions. Maybe that's what she needs." Hyejin looked at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. "I'll present your application to the council." "But Doyen, understand this. If you die out there, it will be on your head, not ours. We won't be able to protect you." "I understand." 3 days later, Doyen's application was approved. The news spread quickly. Earth's media went wild. Some called him a hero, representing humanity on the galactic stage. Others called him a fool throwing his life away for nothing. His face was everywhere, his past examined and discussed by millions of people he'd never met. His childhood friend Jiwoo came to see him before he left. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. She brought boxes of data and research materials. "If you're really doing this crazy thing," she said, dumping the boxes on his floor, "then at least be smart about it. I've compiled everything we know about Velkari biology, psychology, social structures. Study this, learn it. Make it part of you." Doyen smiled. It was the first time he'd really smiled in years. "Thanks, Jiwoo. Don't thank me yet. Just come back alive, you idiot." His younger sister Mireille called him the night before he left. She was crying. "You don't have to do this, big brother. You've already done enough. You fought in the war. You survived when others didn't. You don't owe anyone anything." "I know," Doyen said softly, "but I'm not doing this because I owe anyone. I'm doing it because it's right. Because someone needs to try to build real bridges between our species. And because I think she needs someone to understand her." The ship that took him to Velkara was fast and uncomfortable. Other passengers stared at him, knowing who he was and where he was going. Some wished him luck. Others just shook their heads. When the ship finally entered orbit around Velkara, Doyen pressed his face to the window. The planet below was beautiful and terrifying. The oceans were deep purple, and the continents glowed with bioluminescent forests. Cities sparkled like jewels, their buildings made of the same crystalline material as Velkari skin. As the shuttle descended, Doyen felt his heart pounding. There was no turning back now. Somewhere down there, Queen Aria was waiting. The trials would begin soon, and he would either prove himself worthy or die trying. He thought about his lost crew, the friends who hadn't made it home. He thought about the Velkari warriors who had saved his life when they didn't have to. He thought about the look in Queen Aria's eyes during that broadcast, the loneliness he had recognized because he felt it too. The shuttle landed with a soft thump. Through the window, Doyen could see Velkari guards waiting, their bodies shifting through colors he was only beginning to understand. This was it. This was the moment his life changed forever. He stood up, grabbed his small bag of belongings, and walked toward the door. Whatever happened next, he was ready to face it. The palace of Velkara was nothing like buildings on Earth. The walls were alive, made of the same crystalline substance as Velkari bodies. They pulsed with gentle light, casting rainbow patterns across the floors. Doyen followed two guards through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Other Velkari stopped to watch him pass, their colors shifting to shades of curiosity, disdain, and sometimes anger. He was taken to a preparation chamber where he would wait until the trials began. The room was large but empty except for a sleeping platform and a water station. Everything was designed for beings much larger than humans. Doyen felt very small. A Velkari official entered. His name was Thaven, and his colors were cold blues and grays. "Human," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You should not be here. This is sacred tradition. You mock it with your presence." Doyen met his gaze. The implants behind his eyes translated the subtle color shifts in Thaven's skin. The Velkari was afraid that Doyen might actually succeed. "I'm here with proper authorization," Doyen said calmly. "I'll attempt the trials like any other candidate." "You'll die like the others," Thaven replied. "And it will prove that humans have no place among the strong." He left without another word. Alone again, Doyen pulled out his datapad and reviewed everything Jiwoo had sent him. Velkari culture was complex, built around strength and honor, but also around something humans didn't quite understand. They called it the soul bond, a psychic connection between their queens and their chosen consorts. Without this bond, a queen ruled alone, bearing all the mental and emotional weight of leadership by herself. According to Jiwoo's research, Queen Aria had been ruling alone for 7 years, ever since her family died in the war. 7 years of carrying an entire empire's burden with no one to share it. No wonder she looked so tired. The trials began the next morning. Doyen was brought to an arena where thousands of Velkari had gathered to watch. Queen Aria sat on a throne carved from a single massive crystal. In the bright light, she was magnificent and terrifying. Her colors shifted slowly, purple to gold to deep red. She watched him with those multifaceted eyes showing nothing. 19 other candidates stood in the arena. There were Korthans, massive reptilian beings with scales like armor. There were sessils, floating brain creatures in protective pods. There were species Doyen had never seen before, each one confident they would succeed where others had failed. An announcer's voice boomed across the arena. The first trial begins now. The trial of the hunt. Survive the Velkari forest for 3 days. Reach the center temple before the time ends. Those who fail will be removed. Those who surrender will be shamed. Those who die will be honored for their bravery. The arena floor opened, and the candidates dropped into darkness. Doyen landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact. He was in a forest, but not like any forest on Earth. The trees were massive, their trunks glowing with soft blue light. The air was thick and humid, and he could hear things moving in the darkness. Big things. Other candidates scattered immediately, each using their own species' advantages. The Korthans charged forward with brute strength. The sessils floated above the ground, scanning with advanced sensors. Doyen moved carefully, watching and learning. On the first night, he heard screaming. One of the Korthan candidates had encountered a Velkari predator. The screaming stopped after a few minutes. In the morning, an announcement echoed through the trees. 15 candidates remain. Doyen knew he couldn't fight the predators directly. He was smaller and weaker than everything else in this forest. But he had something others didn't. He had experience surviving in hostile environments during the war. He had learned to think like prey while acting like a hunter. He used the forest itself as a weapon. He created false trails to confuse predators. He climbed trees and moved through the canopy where the big creatures couldn't follow. When he had to cross open ground, he moved during the brief periods when the planet's twin moons both set, leaving everything in near total darkness. On the second day, he found a sessile candidate trapped in crystalline vines. The creature was panicking, its protective pod cracking under pressure. Doyen could have left it, one less competitor, but that wasn't who he was. He carefully cut the vines using a sharp rock, freeing the sessile. The creature bobbed in the air, its colors flashing gratitude. Then it floated away. Doyen continued his journey. The temple appeared on the third day. It was a small structure made of white crystal, glowing against the dark forest. 6 candidates reached it. Doyen was the last to arrive, but he arrived alive and unhurt. The others were wounded, exhausted. The sessile he had saved was there too. It pulsed a greeting when it saw him. They were transported back to the arena. Queen Arya stood and walked down from her throne. She approached each candidate, examining them. When she reached Doyen, she stopped. Her colors shifted to something his implants translated as curiosity. "You saved a competitor," she said. It wasn't a question. Why? Because it was the right thing to do, Doyen answered simply. Her colors shifted again. He couldn't quite read the emotion. "Interesting," she said, and returned to her throne. That night, Doyen was moved to better quarters in the palace. He was given proper food and medical attention, though he didn't need it. As he ate, Jiwoo's face appeared on his communication device. "You made it through the first trial," she said, relief obvious in her voice. "The media back home is going crazy. You're famous now." "I don't care about fame," Doyen said. "I just need to keep going." Jiwoo's expression became serious. "I've been researching the other trials. Doyen, they get worse. Much worse. The second trial is mental. They'll try to break your mind. Humans have never been tested like this before. I don't know if our brains can handle it." "I'll handle it," he said with more confidence than he felt. "There's something else," Jiwoo continued. "I've been analyzing Queen Arya's public appearances over the past 7 years. She's deteriorating. The burden of ruling alone is literally killing her. If she doesn't find a compatible consort soon, she might die anyway. These trials aren't just tradition. They're her last chance." After Jiwoo disconnected, Doyen stood by the window of his room. From here, he could see part of the palace gardens. Bioluminescent plants swayed in the night breeze, casting dancing lights across the paths. As he watched, a figure appeared in the garden. Queen Arya walking alone. Without thinking, Doyen left his room. The guards tried to stop him, but he spoke in formal Velkari, requesting permission to walk in the gardens. They were so surprised to hear proper Velkari from a human that they let him pass. He found Queen Arya by a fountain. The water was luminescent, flowing in patterns that matched her shifting colors. She turned when she heard him approach. "You speak our language," she said in Velkari. Few outsiders bothered to learn. "I wanted to understand your people," Doyen replied in the same language. "After the war, I needed to understand why warriors would save their enemy's life. Her colors shifted to something soft and sad. That was you? The cargo ship we rescued? Yes, they stood in silence for a moment. Then Queen Arya spoke again. Why did you really come here, human? What do you hope to gain? Doyen thought carefully before answering. I came because I saw something in your eyes during the broadcast. The same thing I see in the mirror every day, loneliness, the weight of surviving when others didn't. I thought, maybe someone should try to understand that, to share that burden. Queen Arya's colors flickered through a dozen shades. You think you can understand what it means to rule an empire? To carry the consciousness of millions in your mind? No, Doyen admitted. I can't understand that. But I understand loss. I understand duty. And I understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help. For the first time, her colors showed pure surprise. You're either very wise or very foolish, human. My name is Doyen. Doyen, she repeated, testing the foreign sound. I am Arya. I know, she almost smiled, almost. The next trial begins tomorrow. The trial of the depths. Many candidates break during it. Their minds shatter. Are you prepared for that? I'll find out tomorrow. Queen Arya studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. Her hand moved through the air in a complex pattern, her colors shifting with it. Doyen's implants translated it. A blessing. A wish for strength and clarity. May you survive, Doyen of Earth, she said, and walked away into the darkness. Doyen returned to his quarters, his heart pounding. The trials would continue. 6 candidates remained and only one could succeed. But for the first time since his crew died, Doyen felt something like hope. He wasn't doing this for glory or politics anymore. He was doing it because he had connected with someone across the impossible distance between species, and that connection was worth fighting for. The morning of the second trial, Doyen was taken to a chamber deep beneath the palace. The walls here were different, made of dark stone instead of crystal. Symbols were carved into every surface and the air felt heavy, oppressive. The other 5 candidates were already there, each one looking nervous despite their previous confidence. A Velkhari priest entered. Her colors were pure white, shifting occasionally to pale gold. She was old, ancient even by Velkhari standards, and her presence commanded respect. The trial of the depths tests your mind, she announced. We will enter your thoughts. We will find your weaknesses, your fears, your darkest memories. If your mind is strong, you will endure. If it is weak, you will break. There is no shame in surrender. Madness is not something anyone should choose. The candidates were led to individual chambers, each one sealed with a heavy door. Inside, Doyen found only a chair and complete darkness. He sat down trying to calm his breathing. He had faced many things in his life, but having someone invade his mind was something new and terrifying. The darkness seemed to grow heavier. Then he felt it. Something touching his thoughts like cold fingers pressing against his consciousness. The Velkhari mind priests reaching into him. The first memory they pulled out was the easiest and the hardest. His crew dying. He watched it again, helpless as before. The ship breaking apart, the oxygen venting into space. His friends calling for help that would never come. He had survived only because he had been in the cargo bay when it happened, the only part of the ship that remained sealed. The priests pushed deeper. They found his guilt. Why had he survived when better people died? Why had he been the lucky one? They magnified these feelings, made them overwhelming. Doyen felt himself starting to crack under the pressure. But then something unexpected happened. His human mind, evolved differently than Velkhari minds, began to respond in ways the priest didn't anticipate. Where Velkhari thoughts were ordered and structured, human thoughts were chaotic, jumping from memory to emotion to random observation. The priest couldn't map his mind the way they could with other species. Doyen leaned into this chaos. Instead of fighting the memories, he accepted them. Yes, his crew died. Yes, he felt guilty, but he also felt grateful for the time he had with them. He felt determined to honor their memory. He felt hope that their sacrifice could lead to something better, like the peace treaty that followed the war. Hours passed. Days, maybe. In the darkness, time had no meaning. The priest kept pushing, but Doyen's mind kept adapting, kept finding new ways to process the assault. It wasn't that he was stronger than the other candidates. He was just different enough that their techniques didn't work the same way. Finally, light flooded the chamber. The door opened. A guard stood there, colors showing amazement. You may leave, the guard said. The trial is complete. Doyen stumbled out, exhausted but intact. Only 2 other candidates emerged. The others had surrendered or broken. The sessile he had saved in the forest was one of the survivors. It bobbed a greeting, flashing colors of respect. They were given 2 days to recover before the 3rd trial. During this time, Doyun discovered that news of his success had spread throughout the palace. Velkari nobles whispered about the human who survived the depths. Some were impressed. Others were angry that an outsider was making it this far. Lord Thaven visited him again. "You've been lucky," he said coldly. "But luck runs out. The trial of blood is next. You'll face our warriors in ritual combat. They won't hold back. They'll break you, human." "Maybe," Doyen replied. "Or maybe I'll surprise you again." The night before the trial, Doyen found himself walking in the gardens again. He hoped to see Queen Aria, but she wasn't there. Instead, he studied the plants, the way they moved and responded to touch. Everything on this planet seemed alive in ways that Earth plants weren't. It gave him an idea. The 3rd trial took place in a combat arena. Thousands of Velkari filled the seats, their colors creating a constantly shifting light show. Queen Aria sat on her throne watching. When their eyes met across the distance, her colors shifted to something warm. Concern, maybe. Hope. 3 candidates remained: Doyen, the sessile, and a Korthan warrior named Grex. Grex was massive, covered in scales that could deflect most weapons. He looked at Doyen with something like pity. "You should surrender now, small human. I don't wish to hurt you." "I appreciate that," Doyen said. "But I'm not surrendering." The trial was structured as individual combat. Each candidate would face 3 Velkari warriors. Victory meant incapacitating the opponent or forcing them to yield. Death was discouraged but possible. Grex went first. He fought with raw power, his scales protecting him from most attacks. He won his first bout but was injured in the second. The 3rd warrior managed to pin him and Grex was forced to surrender. He left the arena with honor, his colors showing pride in making it this far. The sessile fought next, using advanced technology and tactics. It won the first match by overwhelming its opponent with coordinated attacks from multiple angles. But in the second match, the Velkari warrior adapted, and the sessile's protective pod was shattered. It withdrew, badly damaged but alive. Then it was Doyen's turn. His first opponent was young and eager, colors flashing aggressive red. The Velkari warrior charged immediately, confident in an easy victory. Doyen didn't meet the charge. Instead, he dodged, rolled, and used the warrior's momentum against him. When the warrior turned for another attack, Doyen was ready. He had studied Velkari movement patterns during his years of preparation. He could predict the attack angles, the preferred striking positions. The warrior was stronger and faster, but Doyen was more precise. After several minutes of this dance, the warrior made a mistake, overextending on an attack. Doyen swept the legs and the warrior crashed down. Before he could rise, Doyen had a practice blade at his throat. The warrior yielded, colors showing respect despite the defeat. The second opponent was older, more cautious. This warrior didn't charge. Instead, they circled, watching, learning. Doyen realized he couldn't use the same tactics. This warrior was too smart for that, so he did something unexpected. He spoke in Velkari. "You fought in the war, didn't you?" "I can see it in the way you move." The warrior's colors flickered surprise. "I did. So did I. We were on different sides, but we both saw the same horrors. We both lost friends." Doyen kept his blade ready but didn't attack. "The war is over. These trials are supposed to bring us together, not tear us apart. Will you fight me with honor as one warrior to another?" The warrior studied him for a long moment. Then their colors shifted to a pattern Doyen had never seen before. Respect, but also something deeper. Understanding. "I will," the warrior said. They fought carefully, both skilled, both careful not to cause serious injury. It was a test of technique rather than violence. The match ended when Doyen managed a complex move that put the warrior off balance long enough to score a technical victory. The warrior yielded with grace, their colors showing approval. The third opponent was different. This was a royal guard, one of the queen's personal protectors. They moved with deadly precision and Doyen knew immediately he was outmatched. This warrior was faster, stronger, and more skilled than him. The fight was brutal. Doyen took several hits that left him dizzy and bleeding. The crowd gasped when he was thrown across the arena, landing hard enough to crack the stone floor. Through blurred vision, he saw Queen Aria lean forward, her colors showing alarm. But Doyen got up. He always got up. His crew hadn't given up when their ship was dying. He wouldn't give up now. He changed his strategy. Instead of trying to match the warrior's skill, he started fighting dirty. Earth-style street fighting mixed with war survival tactics. He threw sand. He used the environment, bouncing off walls to change direction unpredictably. He made himself annoying, frustrating, impossible to pin down. The warrior grew irritated. That irritation led to mistakes. Small ones at first, but mistakes nonetheless. Doyen exploited each one, landing hits whenever possible. Not enough to win, but enough to show he wouldn't quit. Finally, after what felt like hours, the warrior stepped back. Their colors shifted to something Doyen's implants translated as astonishment and respect. The warrior lowered their blade. "You are worthy," they said. "Not because you beat me. You didn't. But because you refused to surrender. That is true strength," the warrior yielded. The crowd erupted in confusion and amazement. This had never happened before. A royal guard yielding to someone they could easily defeat. Queen Arya stood from her throne. "Doyen of Earth," she announced, her voice carrying across the arena. "You have completed 3 trials. You are the first outsider to reach this point in 50 years. The remaining 4 trials will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Do you wish to continue?" Doyen was bleeding, exhausted, every muscle screaming in pain. But he looked up at Queen Arya and saw her colors. They were showing something he now recognized. Hope. She was hoping he would continue. Hoping he wouldn't give up. "Yes," he said clearly. "I wish to continue." The crowd's colors shifted through 1,000 shades. Some showed approval. Others showed anger. But everyone, even Lord Thaven, had to acknowledge what had happened. A human had made it further than anyone expected. As Doyen was escorted to the medical chambers, he passed Queen Arya's throne. She reached out as he went by, her fingers brushing his shoulder, for due recovery from the trial of blood took longer than Doyen expected. The Velkari medical technology was advanced, but his human body healed differently than theirs. He spent 3 days in the medical wing, bones being mended, cuts being sealed. During this time, he received an unexpected gift. Queen Arya had given him access to the royal archives. The message came through an official channel, delivered by a young Velkari attendant whose colors showed nervousness. "Her Majesty believes you should understand our history before the next trials begin," the attendant explained. "The archives contain everything. Our culture, our wars, our traditions. She says you've earned the right to know who we truly are." Doyen spent every waking moment in the archives. The room was vast, filled with data crystals that contained thousands of years of Velkari history. He learned about their ancient civilization, their art, their philosophy. But what fascinated him most was the recent history. The war years. He discovered why the Velkari had fought so fiercely. Their home system had been threatened by expansion from other species. They had fought not for conquest but for survival. The humans and other species had misunderstood, thinking the Velkari were aggressive invaders. In reality, they had been defending their territory. Then he found records about Queen Arya's family. Her parents, her 3 siblings, all killed in a single battle near the end of the war. A battle that had been unnecessary, a miscommunication that led to tragedy. Arya had been crowned at age 20, young even by Velkari standards, forced to lead a grieving empire toward peace. The records showed something else too, something that made Doyen's heart ache. Velkari queens were meant to bond with a consort, sharing the mental burden of leadership through a psychic connection. Without this bond, ruling was slowly destroying Arya from the inside. The archives contained medical scans showing the deterioration of her neural pathways, the stress fractures in her crystalline form. She was dying, slowly but surely. The weight of ruling alone was killing her. The trials weren't just tradition. They were her last desperate attempt to find someone compatible before it was too late. And with each failed candidate, with each year that passed, she had less and less hope. That night, Doyen left the medical wing without permission. The guards tried to stop him, but he simply walked past them, his expression so determined that they stepped aside. He made his way through the palace corridors, following the paths he had memorized. He found Queen Arya in a private observation room, looking out at the stars. She turned when he entered, her colors flashing surprise and then concern. "You should be resting." "Your injuries will heal," Doyen interrupted. "I need to talk to you. Really talk to you." Arya dismissed the guards with a gesture. When they were alone, she seemed smaller somehow, less like a queen and more like a person. You've been reading the archives. Yes, I know about your family. I know what the bond is supposed to do. I know you're running out of time. Her colors shifted to dark blues and grays, sadness and resignation. Then you understand why these trials are so important, and why they're probably going to fail anyway. The candidates so far have been strong, Doyen said. But you're not looking for strength, are you? You're looking for compatibility, someone whose mind can connect with yours without breaking either of you. Yes. She moved to sit on a bench carved from crystal, and after a moment, Doyen sat beside her. The bond requires openness, vulnerability. Most warriors, most leaders, they've built walls around their minds. They're strong, but those walls prevent the bond from forming. I need someone who can be strong and open at the same time. Someone rare. What happens if you don't find someone? I die, she said simply. Within a year, maybe two, the strain will be too much. My body will crystallize completely, and I'll become like the palace walls, still beautiful but not alive anymore. Another tragedy for my people to endure. They sat in silence for a while. Through the window, Velkara's twin moons rose, casting silver light across the landscape. Finally, Doyen spoke. When I lost my crew, I thought I would never feel connected to anyone again. I built walls too, not because I was strong, but because I was scared. Scared of losing more people I cared about. What changed? I saw your broadcast. I saw someone else who was alone, who was carrying more than one person should have to carry. And I thought, maybe we're all just looking for someone to understand, someone to share the weight with. Arya's colors shifted through several shades before settling on something warm and gentle. You're strange, Doyen of Earth. Your species is so young, so new to the galaxy, but you see things that older species miss. You see hearts beneath armor. My friend Jiwoo, the xenobiologist, she's been researching the bond, Doyen said. She thinks human brain structure might actually be compatible with Velkari psychic connections. Different from your people, but not necessarily incompatible. Our chaos might work with your order. The remaining trials will test that, Arya warned. The trial of unity requires a preliminary connection. If our minds can't touch without causing damage, the trial ends immediately. And the final trial, the trial of ascension, requires a full bond. That's the one that kills most candidates who make it that far. Their minds can't handle the merging, but no one knows if a human mind can handle it because no human has ever tried. Exactly. She looked at him with those multifaceted eyes. I don't want you to die, Doyen. You've become important to me. These conversations, this connection we're building, it matters. If you were to die in the trials, I don't know if I could forgive myself. Then help me survive, Doyen said. Teach me about your mind, your people, your way of thinking. I've studied the archives, but that's not the same as learning from you. The next trial is in 5 days. We have time. Arya was quiet for a long moment. Then she made a decision. Very well. Meet me here tomorrow at dawn. I'll teach you what I can. But Doyen, understand that this changes nothing officially. I can't show favoritism during the trials. If you fail, I cannot save you. I understand. Over the next 5 days, Queen Arya taught Doyen things no outsider had ever learned. She showed him the deeper levels of color speech, the emotional languages that Velkari used only with family and close bonds. She explained how Velkari minds worked, the way they perceived reality through multiple dimensions of consciousness simultaneously. In return, Doyen taught her about humans. He explained human emotions which were messier and less organized than Velkari feelings, but no less powerful. He told her about Earth's music, art, and literature. He made her laugh with stories about human mistakes and triumphs. They discovered something remarkable. Their minds, though vastly different, had points of similarity. Where Velkari thought in structured patterns, humans thought in creative chaos. But both species valued loyalty, loved their families, and feared loss. The fundamental emotions were universal. On the 4th night of their meeting, something shifted between them. Arya was explaining a complex concept about dimensional perception, and she reached out to touch Doyen's temple, trying to help him understand. The moment her crystalline fingers touched his skin, they both felt it. A spark, a connection that went deeper than words or colors. Arya pulled back quickly, her colors flashing shock. That shouldn't be possible, not yet. Not without the formal bonding trial. But it happened, Doyen said, his heart racing. I felt your mind touching mine. Just for a second. This is either very good or very dangerous, Arya said, standing and pacing. If we're already starting to connect, it means the bond is possible. But it also means we need to be more careful. If we bond too early outside the formal trials, it could be considered invalid. Lord Thaven and the nobles would use it to challenge everything. So we wait, Doyen said. We continue as planned. Yes. But her colors showed something else. Reluctance, fear, and beneath it all, hope. The night before the fourth trial, Jiwoo contacted Doyen with urgent news. I've finished analyzing the psychic compatibility data, she said, her face serious on the screen. Doyen, the bond is definitely possible between you and Queen Arya. But there's a problem. Your neural implants weren't designed for this level of connection. If you try to bond during the trials, there's a significant chance they'll overload. It could cause brain damage or death. Can you upgrade them? Doyen asked. Maybe, but it would require a procedure, and I'm not on Velkara. I can't help you from here. You'd need to find a Velkari neural specialist willing to work on a human, and you'd need to do it before the next trial. After Jiwoo disconnected, Doyen sat in his room, thinking. He could try to find a specialist. He could delay the trials. But every day he delayed was another day that Arya suffered alone. Another day closer to her death, he made his decision. He would continue with the trials as planned. If his implants failed, if his mind broke during the bonding, at least he would have tried. At least Arya would know that someone had cared enough to risk everything for her. As he prepared for sleep, a message appeared on his communication device. It was from Arya, just 3 words in color speech that his implants translated. Thank you, Doyen. He smiled, typing back in her language. Thank you for letting me try. Tomorrow, the Chamber of Mirrors was unlike anything Doyen had seen before. The walls were made of a material that seemed to reflect not light, but thoughts and memories. As he entered, he saw fragments of himself repeated infinitely in every direction. But these weren't just visual reflections. They were pieces of his soul made visible. The white-robed priest from the second trial waited at the center.
The trial of unity has 2 parts, she explained, her colors shifting slowly.
First, you must face yourself completely. The mirror will show you everything you hide, everything you fear, everything you regret. You cannot lie to the mirror. You cannot hide. If you cannot accept yourself fully, the bond will fail. And the second part? Doyen asked. If you survive the mirror, Queen Arya will join you here. You will attempt a preliminary bond, just a touch of minds, nothing permanent yet. If your minds are compatible, you will feel a connection. If they are not, the priest's colors darkened. It will be agony for both of you. The priest left and the chamber sealed behind her. Doyen stood alone in the infinite reflections. Then the mirror began to work. Images flooded his mind. His crew dying, yes, he had already faced that. But the mirror went deeper. It showed him moments he had forgotten, memories he had buried. His father's disappointment when Doyen chose to be a pilot instead of a doctor. His mother's tears when he left for the war. The friend from childhood he had abandoned when life got difficult. The mirror showed him his selfishness, his cowardice, all the small cruelties he had committed over his life. Every lie he had told, every promise he had broken, every time he had chosen the easy path instead of the right one. It was overwhelming. Doyen fell to his knees, crushed under the weight of his own failures. But then something changed. The mirror began showing him other moments. The time he had stayed up all night to help a fellow pilot study for an exam. The money he had sent home to help his sister through school. The way he had held his friend's hand as they died, promising to remember them. The Velkari lives he had tried to save even when they were enemies. The mirror showed him everything, good and bad, without judgment. And Doyen realized something important. He wasn't perfect. He had made mistakes, but he had also tried to be good. He had tried to help people. He had tried to make the universe a little less dark. He stood up, facing the infinite reflections. I'm not perfect, he said aloud. I'm scared and flawed and I've hurt people, but I'm also trying to be better. I'm trying to understand, to connect, to build bridges. That has to count for something. The reflections shifted. The harsh images faded, replaced by a simple, clear image of himself as he truly was. Not a hero, not a villain, just a person trying his best. And for the first time in years, Doyen looked at himself and felt something like acceptance. The chamber doors opened. Queen Arya entered, her colors subdued and vulnerable. She looked at him with understanding in her multifaceted eyes. "The mirror is harsh," she said softly. "I underwent it when I became queen. It nearly broke me, but you survived, as did you." She moved to the center of the chamber where a raised platform waited. "Are you ready to try the connection?" Doyen joined her on the platform. They stood face to face, close enough to touch. Arya's colors shifted nervously. "This will feel strange," she warned. "My mind doesn't work like yours. It may be overwhelming." "I trust you," Doyen said simply. Arya raised her hands, placing them gently on either side of his head. Her crystalline fingers were cool against his skin. She closed her eyes and her colors began to pulse in a slow, rhythmic pattern. Doyen felt his neural implants activating, responding to her psychic energy. Then their minds touched. It was like falling into an ocean. Arya's consciousness was vast, filled with colors and sensations that human minds weren't designed to perceive. Doyen felt himself drowning in the sheer scope of her awareness. She was connected to her people, feeling their emotions, their needs, their fears. The weight of an empire pressed down on her every moment of every day. But he also felt her loneliness. The empty space where her family should have been. The exhaustion from bearing this burden alone. The fear that she would die without ever truly connecting with someone who understood. Arya gasped, and Doyen realized she was experiencing his mind too. His chaotic human thoughts jumping from memory to emotion to random observation. Where her mind was like a structured crystal, his was like a wild forest, organic and unpredictable. "Your mind," she whispered, her voice strained. "It's so different. I can't find the patterns." "Don't look for patterns," Doyen said, speaking both aloud and through the connection. "Just feel. Just be present." He thought about his crew, the people he had loved and lost. He thought about the Velkhari warriors who had saved him. He thought about Arya, standing alone on that throne, asking the galaxy for help and receiving only warriors who wanted to conquer her, not understand her. Through the connection, he sent her a feeling. Not words, not colors, just pure emotion, compassion. The desire to share her burden, not because he wanted power or glory, but because no one should be that alone. Arya's colors shifted to something brilliant and beautiful. She was feeling it too, the connection forming between them. Their minds were different, but they were finding ways to bridge the gap. His chaos and her order, mixing and creating something new. But then Doyen's neural implants began to overload. Warning signals flashed behind his eyes. The technology wasn't designed for this level of psychic connection. Pain lanced through his head, sharp and intense. He tried to pull back to break the connection, but Arya held him firmly. "No," she said urgently. "Don't retreat. The pain means your mind is adapting. If you pull back now, we'll have to start over and it will be worse next time." "It hurts," Doyen gasped. "I know. I feel it too. But stay with me. Stay present. We're almost there." Doyen forced himself to focus through the pain. He thought about why he was doing this. Not for Earth, not for politics, but for the woman in front of him, the queen who had been carrying an impossible weight for 7 years. The person who had let him see her vulnerability and trusted him with her truth. The pain peaked, becoming almost unbearable. Then suddenly it broke. The connection stabilized. Doyen felt Arya's mind settle into alignment with his, like two puzzle pieces that shouldn't fit but somehow did. They weren't fully bonded yet, but they were compatible. They could touch without destroying each other. Arya opened her eyes and they were filled with tears. Velkhari didn't cry like humans, but her colors showed the same emotion. Relief, joy, hope. "It worked," she whispered. "We're compatible. The bond is possible." They separated slowly, reluctantly. Doyen stumbled, dizzy from the experience. Arya steadied him, her hand on his shoulder. Through that simple touch, he could still feel the echo of her presence in his mind. The white-robed priest entered, her colors showing amazement. "Unprecedented," she said. "A human and a Velkhari forming a preliminary bond. This will change everything." But Doyen wasn't thinking about history or politics. He was looking at Arya, seeing the hope in her eyes, the way her colors had brightened for the first time since he had arrived on this planet. "One more trial," he said. "The trial of ascension." Arya's colors dimmed slightly. "The most dangerous trial. The one where we complete the bond fully. Many compatible pairs have failed at this stage. The merging is intense, and if either mind cannot handle it, both will be damaged." "When do we attempt it?" Traditionally, there is a waiting period. 1 month to allow both participants to prepare mentally and physically. We don't have a month, Doyen said quietly, thinking about the medical scans he had seen in the archives. You don't have a month. Arya's colors flickered with surprise. You saw the records. I saw everything.
Arya, you're dying.
Every day we wait is another day you're suffering alone. If we're compatible, if the bond is possible, why wait? Because rushing could kill us both, she said firmly. But her colors showed conflict. She knew he was right about her condition, but she didn't want to risk his life. How long can we wait safely? Doyen asked. The priest answered. With the preliminary bond established, you have perhaps 2 weeks before the connection begins to deteriorate. After that, attempting the full bond becomes more difficult and dangerous. Then we have 2 weeks to prepare, Doyen said. We use that time to strengthen the connection, to practice touching minds. Then we complete the final trial. Arya studied him for a long moment. Then she made her decision. Very well. But Doyen, promise me something. If during those 2 weeks you change your mind, if you decide this is too dangerous, you'll tell me. I won't force you to continue. I promise, Doyen said. But I'm not going to change my mind. The news of their successful preliminary bond spread through the palace within hours. Lord Thaven and his supporters were outraged, claiming it was impossible, a trick, a violation of tradition. But the priest's testimony and the recorded evidence couldn't be denied. A human and the Velkari queen had formed a preliminary bond. Earth's media exploded with the news. Doyen's face was everywhere again. Some celebrated him as a hero, bringing humanity closer to the alien powers. Others criticized him for risking everything on what they saw as a doomed romance. But Doyen ignored all of it. For the next 2 weeks, he spent every day with Arya, practicing the connection, learning to navigate each other's mind. The morning of the final trial never came. Instead, Doyen was awakened by guards storming into his quarters. Their colors flashed aggressive red, and they moved with military precision. Before he could react, they had him restrained. What's happening? He demanded, trying to stay calm. You're being brought before the High Council, one guard said. Lord Thaven has made a formal accusation. The Queen will meet you there. They dragged him through the palace corridors. Other Velkari watched, their colors showing confusion and concern. Whatever was happening, it wasn't normal protocol. As they approached the council chamber, Doyen felt a familiar presence through the preliminary bond. Arya was already inside, and she was afraid. The council chamber was full. Dozens of Velkari nobles sat in their designated seats, their colors creating a storm of emotion in the room. At the center stood Lord Thaven, his colors showing cold satisfaction. Queen Arya stood nearby, her colors rigidly controlled, but Doyen could feel her distress through their connection. The human enters, Thaven announced as Doyen was brought forward. The one who has corrupted our sacred traditions. What is this about? Doyen asked, looking at Arya, but she couldn't meet his eyes. Something was very wrong. Thaven activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing Doyen and Arya in the gardens meeting privately at night. For 2 weeks, the Queen has been meeting with this candidate in secret, teaching him, preparing him, showing him favoritism that violates the sacred neutrality of the trials. Murmurs spread through the council. Some nobles' colors shifted to anger. Others showed uncertainty. The trials are meant to be impartial, Thaven continued. A queen must not favor any candidate. She must let the sacred test judge worthiness alone. But Queen Arya has broken this law. She has formed a personal attachment to the human before the trials were complete. This invalidates everything. We were preparing for the bond, Arya said, her voice steady despite the fear Doyen felt from her. The preliminary connection was established during the trial of unity. Training together for the final trial is not favoritism. It's necessary. Necessary? Thaven's colors flashed contempt. You spent every day with him. You taught him secrets of our culture that outsiders should never learn. You showed him the royal archives. And most damning of all, he activated another display showing their conversation in the garden last night. You admitted to having feelings for him. Falling in love, I believe the human term is. The council erupted. Nobles shouted, their colors creating chaos. Some defended the queen, but many more seemed swayed by Thaven's words. Doyen felt Arya's distress growing through the bond, her carefully maintained control starting to crack. The law is clear, Thaven said over the noise. If a queen shows favoritism during the trials, those trials are invalid. The candidate must be expelled and punished for corrupting the sacred process. The queen, he paused dramatically, must step down from the throne. No, Arya said firmly. I will not step down. The bond is real. The connection is genuine. The trials proved compatibility before any personal feelings developed. Did they? They even pulled up more records. These medical scans show unusual neural activity in both of you, dating back to your first conversation in the gardens, weeks before the trial of unity. You were already bonding, already forming connections, before the sacred trial even began. Doyen realized with growing horror that Thaven was right. That first night in the gardens when Arya had touched him, when they had talked honestly for the first time, something had begun between them. Not the full preliminary bond, but the seeds of it. Their minds had recognized compatibility before the formal trial confirmed it. That doesn't invalidate the bond, a voice spoke up. The white-robed priest stood from her seat. If anything, it proves the bond's authenticity. Their minds sought each other naturally, without coercion or ritual. This is how the ancient bonds formed before we made trials and rules. Ancient bonds were between Velkari and Velkari, Thaven countered. Not between our queen and an alien who has been on our world for mere weeks. How do we know the human isn't manipulating her somehow, using technology we don't understand? I'm not manipulating anyone, Doyen said, speaking for the first time since entering the chamber. Everything that's happened between us has been genuine. Yes, we connected before the formal trial. Yes, we have feelings for each other. But that doesn't make the bond any less real. The human speaks of feelings, Thaven said mockingly. But what does he know of the sacred bond? Of the weight of ruling an empire? He's a cargo pilot, a nobody from a species that has barely joined the galactic community. And yet he claims the right to bond with our queen? He has earned that right, Arya said, her colors flashing anger now. He passed 3 trials that killed or broke others. He survived the mirror. He formed a preliminary bond that the priest confirmed as genuine. Everything he has done has been honorable and brave. Then let him survive one more test, Thaven said, his colors showing cunning. Not a trial of the body or mind, but a trial of truth. Let him undergo a deep psychic scan here before the council. Let us see into his thoughts, his true motivations. If his intentions are pure, he has nothing to fear. If he has been manipulating our queen, we will know. The suggestion created new chaos in the council. A deep psychic scan was invasive, painful, and could cause permanent damage to human minds. But it would reveal the truth about Doyen's motivations beyond any doubt. No, Arya said immediately. That scan could kill him. Human neurology isn't designed for that kind of intrusion. Then perhaps he should have considered that before attempting to bond with a Velkari queen. Thaven replied coldly. Your Majesty, the council demands truth. Either the human submits to the scan or we must assume he has something to hide. Doyen felt Arya's panic through the bond. She was trapped. If she refused, it would look like she was protecting him because she knew he was guilty. If she agreed, she might lose him to brain damage or death. There was no good choice, but Doyen made his own choice. I'll do it, he said clearly. I'll submit to the scan. Doyen, no. Arya turned to him, her colors showing desperate fear. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. The pain alone could break you and the damage could be permanent. I understand, he said, looking into her multifaceted eyes. Through the bond, he sent her a feeling of certainty and love. I have nothing to hide. Let them see the truth. How brave, Thaven said, though his colors showed disappointment. He had expected Doyen to refuse, giving him ammunition to question the human's motives. Very well. The scan will be performed immediately. They brought in 3 mind priests, the most powerful psychics among the Velkari. Doyen was seated in a chair at the center of the chamber, with the priests forming a triangle around him. The white-robed priest who had overseen the trials approached Arya. Your Majesty, she said quietly, you should not watch this. Through the preliminary bond, you'll feel his pain. It could damage you both. I won't abandon him, Arya said firmly. If he can endure this, I can witness it. The scan began. The 3 priests reached into Doyen's mind, deeper than the trial of depths had gone. They pulled out every memory, every thought, every motivation. Doyen screamed as his consciousness was laid bare before the council. They saw his childhood, his dreams of flying among the stars. They saw the war, the death, the guilt. They saw his crew dying and his desperate wish that he could have saved them. They saw his loneliness after the war, the feeling that he didn't belong anywhere anymore. Then they saw his first glimpse of Queen Arya during the broadcast. The recognition of someone else who was alone. The decision to volunteer, motivated not by politics or ambition but by simple compassion. They saw every moment he had spent on Velkara, every trial, every conversation with Arya. Most importantly, they saw his feelings for her develop. Not manipulation or calculation, but genuine care growing into something deeper. They saw him fall in love with a person, not a queen. With her loneliness and strength, her vulnerability and power. They saw that he didn't want to rule an empire or gain political advantage. He just wanted to help someone who needed help, to connect with someone who understood what it meant to bear impossible burdens. The scan ended. Doyon collapsed in the chair, blood trickling from his nose and ears. His neural implants were smoking, overloaded by the intrusion. Through the bond, Arya felt his agony and stumbled, nearly falling. The lead mind priest turned to the council. "I have seen this human soul," she announced. "There is no deception, no manipulation, only genuine care and honest intention. His feelings for Queen Arya are real, and his desire to help her is without ulterior motive." The council fell silent. Many nobles' colors shifted from anger to shame or uncertainty. They had seen the same memories through the psychic link the priest had created. They had witnessed Doyon's truth, but Thaven wasn't finished. "Genuine feelings don't excuse breaking the law," he said. "The queen still showed favoritism. The trials are still invalid. And now we have another problem. The human's neural implants are destroyed. Even if we allowed him to attempt the final trial, he no longer has the technology needed to complete the..." Bondajiwu arrived on Velkara 3 days later, bringing equipment and research data from Earth. She was shocked when she saw Doyon in the medical wing, his head wrapped in bandages, his neural implants completely burned out. "What did they do to you?" she demanded, her eyes filling with tears. "I volunteered for a psychic scan," Doyon said weakly, "to prove my intentions were genuine." "You idiot," Jiwoo said, but she was already examining his injuries, her scientific mind cataloging the damage. "The neural pathways around the implants are severely damaged." "This is worse than I expected." Queen Arya stood nearby, her colors subdued with worry. She had barely left Doyon's side since his collapse. "Can you help him?" she asked Jiwoo. "Can you perform the upgrade procedure?" Jiwoo studied the Velkari queen for a moment, then nodded. "I'll try, but I need complete access to your medical technology and psychic mapping systems. The procedure I designed on Earth was theoretical. Here with your equipment, I might be able to actually make it work." Over the next week, Jiwoo worked with Velkari medical specialists to refine the procedure. They created new implants that could interface more deeply with human neural tissue, while also connecting to Velkari psychic frequencies. It was revolutionary work, combining human and alien technology in ways that had never been attempted. During this time, Doyon recovered slowly. The damaged preliminary bond with Arya was fading, and they both felt the loss keenly. Without it, they couldn't sense each other's emotions or thoughts. They were reduced to words and gestures, like strangers learning to communicate all over again. "I miss feeling you in my mind," Arya admitted one evening as she sat beside his bed. "These past weeks, having that connection, it made me feel less alone than I've felt in years. Losing it is like losing a part of myself." "We'll get it back," Doyon promised. "The procedure will work, and then we'll complete the full bond and we'll never be alone again." "I wish I had your confidence," Arya said, her colors showing fear. "What if the procedure fails? What if you die on the table? I can't lose you, Doyon. Not now." He took her hand, marveling at how natural this simple human gesture had become between them. "Then you'll grieve and you'll continue ruling and you'll remember that we tried." That for a few weeks, two impossible people from impossible worlds found each other. That has to mean something. The day of the procedure arrived. Doyon was taken to a surgical chamber where Jiwoo and 3 Velkari specialists waited. The new implants sat in a crystalline container, glowing with soft light. They looked organic, more alive than the original technology. "This is going to hurt," Jiwoo warned him. "We're essentially rebuilding parts of your neural structure. The pain will be intense and there's a significant chance of death or permanent brain damage." "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure," Doyon said. They sedated him, but not completely. The procedure required him to be partially conscious, to help guide the integration of the new implants with his existing neural pathways. As the surgery began, pain unlike anything he had experienced flooded through him. The specialists carefully removed the burned-out implants, then began installing the new ones. Each connection they made between the technology and his brain tissue felt like fire. Doyen screamed despite the sedation, his body convulsing on the table. Through the haze of agony, he heard Jiwoo's voice. "Stay with us, Doyen, just a little longer. The implants are integrating. Your brain is adapting." Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost meaning in the pain, but slowly, gradually, something changed. The implants began working. Doyen felt new pathways opening in his mind, new ways of perceiving reality. He could sense the Velkari specialist's thoughts, feel their concern and concentration. The psychic dimensions that Arya had tried to explain to him suddenly became visible, comprehensible. Finally, it was over. The specialist stepped back, their colors showing cautious triumph. Jiwoo checked the monitors, her hands shaking with exhaustion and relief. "It worked," she said, hardly believing it. "The integration is stable. The new implants are functional." Doyen opened his eyes. The world looked different now. He could see colors that human eyes normally couldn't perceive, the psychic frequencies that Velkari used to communicate. When the specialist's colors shifted to indicate relief and satisfaction, he understood them perfectly without needing translation software. "Get the queen," Jiwoo said to one of the specialists. "He's ready." Arya arrived within minutes, moving faster than royal dignity normally allowed. When she entered the surgical chamber and saw Doyen sitting up, aware and alive, her colors exploded into brilliant golds and whites. "Joy, relief, hope. You survived," she said, coming to his side. "I told you I would," Doyen replied. Then he gasped. He could see her colors now, truly see them without implant translation, and what he saw was beautiful beyond words. Every emotion, every thought expressed in patterns of light that shifted across her crystalline form. "You can see me?" Arya realized, her colors showing wonder. "Really see me the way my people do?" "Yes," Doyen said. "And you're amazing." The ancient white-robed priest entered the chamber. "If you've recovered sufficiently," she said, "the final trial awaits. The trial of ascension, the complete bonding. Are you both ready?" Doyen looked at Arya. Through the new implants, he could sense the edges of her consciousness waiting for him. She was afraid but also determined. 7 years of loneliness would end today. One way or another. "We're ready," they said together. The bonding sanctum was built in the oldest part of the palace, carved from a single massive crystal that reached deep into the planet's core. The walls pulsed with ancient energy and the air itself seemed to vibrate with power. This was where Velkari queens had bonded with their consorts for thousands of years. The sanctum was open to observers. The entire council was present, along with thousands of Velkari citizens watching through psychic links. This was history being made, and everyone wanted to witness it. Doyen and Arya stood on a raised platform at the center of the sanctum. They faced each other, hands clasped. Around them, mind priests formed a circle, ready to guide the bonding process and intervene if something went wrong. "The trial of ascension requires complete trust," the ancient priest announced. "You must open your minds fully to each other, holding nothing back. Your consciousnesses will merge, becoming one entity while remaining two individuals. If either of you resists, if either holds back even slightly, the bond will fail and both minds will be damaged beyond repair." "We understand," Arya said, her color steady despite her fear. "Then begin," the priest commanded. Arya and Doyen closed their eyes. Through the new implants, Doyen reached out with his mind, finding Arya's consciousness waiting for him. This time, instead of just touching, they dove deep into each other. Doyen experienced what it meant to be Velkari, to perceive reality through multiple dimensions simultaneously. He felt Arya's connection to her people, the constant stream of emotions and needs flowing through her from millions of minds. He understood the weight she carried, the loneliness of being the only one who could feel all of it. Arya experienced what it meant to be human, to think in creative chaos, to feel emotions intensely and individually rather than as part of a collective consciousness. She understood why Doyen had volunteered, not for power or status, but simply because he recognized her pain and wanted to help. Their memories merged. Doyen saw Arya's childhood, her loving family, the day they died and left her alone on a throne she was too young to occupy. Arya saw Doyen's crew, the war, his survivor's guilt and his desperate need to make their deaths mean something. The merging intensified. They began to lose track of where one mind ended and the other began. Doyen felt himself dissolving into Arya's vast consciousness, feared he would lose his individual identity entirely. Arya felt Doyen's chaos threatening to overwhelm her careful order, worried that her structured mind would shatter under the unpredictable human emotions. But then something remarkable happened. Instead of one consuming the other, they began to balance. Doyen's chaos gave Arya's order flexibility, allowing her to adapt and grow. Arya's structure gave Doyen's chaos direction, helping him focus his scattered thoughts. They weren't becoming one person. They were becoming partners, two minds linked but distinct, supporting each other. The bond solidified. It was like a bridge forming between two cliffs, strong and permanent. Through this bridge, they could share thoughts, emotions, and experiences instantly. Arya's burden of leadership was now shared by two minds instead of one. Doyen's loneliness evaporated, replaced by constant connection to someone who understood him completely. But there was more. The bond had created something new, something unprecedented. Where their consciousnesses merged, a third presence emerged. Not a separate entity, but a shared space where human and Valkyrie thoughts mixed freely, creating hybrid ideas and emotions that belonged to both species and neither. This shared space pulsed with energy, and suddenly Doyen and Arya understood its significance. It was a template. Other humans and Valkyrie could use this as a guide, learning to bond across species barriers. They had created not just a personal connection, but a bridge between their peoples. The priests sensed this too. Their colors showed amazement. Unprecedented, the ancient priest whispered. They've created a new form of bond,